What's the moment that made you decide being nice wasn't working anymore? I was 23 when my coworker Bryce started his campaign to destroy me. It began small, stealing my lunch from the office fridge, then acting confused when I asked about it. "Are you sure you brought lunch today?" He'd say with this innocent smile that made me question my own memory. Then he started taking credit for my ideas in meetings. I'd propose a solution, and 5 minutes later, Bryce would repeat it almost word for word. Our manager would praise his creativity, while I sat there stunned. When I tried to speak up, Bryce would interrupt with, "Oh right, Iris mentioned something similar earlier. Great minds think alike." I told myself to be the bigger person. Maybe he didn't realize what he was doing. Maybe I was being oversensitive. The pranks escalated. He'd move my parking spot cone while I was inside, forcing me to park in visitor spaces and get written up. He'd accidentally spill coffee on my reports right before big presentations. He convinced the cleaning crew that my desk was being fumigated, so they'd throw away my personal items. "Bryce is just playful," my manager said when I finally complained. "He's helping with team morale. Maybe try to be more of a team player." For 8 months, I absorbed every humiliation. I documented everything, hoping HR would eventually listen. I stayed late to redo work he'd sabotaged. I bought extra lunches in case he stole mine. I became a doormat with a college degree. My friends told me I was being weak. "Just stand up to him," they'd say, as if it were that simple. But I'd grown up being told that nice girls don't make waves, that professionalism meant turning the other cheek, that good employees don't create drama. So when Bryce started rumors that I was sleeping with our married IT director, I stayed quiet. When he convinced everyone I'd called in sick to go to a concert, I'd actually had food poisoning. I just worked twice as hard the next week to prove my dedication. The breaking point came during our annual client presentation. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing a proposal for our biggest account. The night before, I printed everything and locked it in my desk drawer. The next morning, my presentation was gone. In its place was a note: "Thanks for the great material, B." I found Bryce in the conference room, presenting my work to the clients, word for word, even my personal anecdotes about the research process. Something snapped. I walked into that conference room, pulled out my laptop, and projected my original files, complete with timestamps and revision history. "Excuse me," I said calmly, "but Bryce is presenting stolen work." The room went silent. Bryce's face went white. "These are my files created over 3 weeks. I can show you the progression of every edit." I pulled up my email drafts, my research notes, even photos of my handwritten brainstorming sessions. Bryce accessed my desk illegally and stole intellectual property. Our biggest client, a sharp woman in her 50s, looked between us coldly. "Is this true?" she asked Bryce. He stammered about collaboration and shared ideas, but I cut him off. "Show them your research notes, Bryce, your drafts, your process." He couldn't, because none existed. The client stood up. "We don't work with companies that tolerate theft." They walked out. We lost a $200,000 contract. Bryce was fired that afternoon. During his exit interview, I learned he'd been reported for similar behavior at his previous job. My manager apologized profusely, promoted me to Bryce's position with a 30% raise, and implemented new policies about intellectual property. HR sent out a company-wide memo about workplace harassment that everyone knew was because of my situation. The best part? 3 other employees came forward with their own Bryce stories after he was gone. Apparently, I wasn't his only target. 6 months later, I heard Bryce was working at a car dealership. Apparently, his new manager wasn't as tolerant of his playful behavior. Last I checked, he'd been fired from there too. Being nice had cost me 8 months of my sanity, countless sleepless nights, and nearly my career. Fighting back cost Bryce everything. Sometimes the choice is simple.